All right, this is where things get real. Everything we've explored so far, we're about to put it to work. In these sessions, we take actual problems, not hypotheticals, and run them through a rigorous test. The big question we're asking is this problem worth solving? Because not every problem deserves a solution. The ones that do, they hurt enough people, badly enough, that someone has to act. That's where our economic quadrant comes in. It's a sharp analytical lens that helps us answer three things fast. Is this problem causing real pain? Is it affecting enough people? And, critically, who has the economic motivation to get it fixed? Get those answers right, and something powerful happens. Clarity. Intent. A business model starts to take shape, and momentum builds toward an actual solution. So, let's dive in. Let's find the problems worth fighting for. Let's start with a headline that stopped me in my tracks. The World Health Organization puts out a report, and it says e-waste is soaring, and it's not just an environmental problem, it's a health crisis. Millions of children affected. And the call is clear. We need more effective binding action. Now, that report could have been just another thing I scrolled past. But instead, it sparked a question, a simple one. Does everything we throw away really have no use left? Think about it. When you discard an old phone, a broken laptop, a dead appliance, is the entire device truly dead? Or is it just one failed component bringing the whole thing down? What if there were a way to check, to evaluate, whether parts of that discarded device could actually be extracted, refurbished, and reused? And here's where it gets interesting. If those refurbished parts could be used to fix another device with the exact same failure, haven't we just closed a loop? Haven't we taken something heading for a landfill and brought it back into the value chain? Could this create even a partial dent in the e-waste crisis? And more importantly, is this economically viable? Can this become a win for everyone involved? These are the questions worth chasing. So let's chase them methodically. We take this use case and plot it across the four economic quadrants: assets, liabilities, necessities, and facilities. And we do this from the perspective of each key actor in the ecosystem. Let's start with the most obvious actor, the person holding a broken, unused electronics device. From their point of view, that device is sitting squarely in the liability quadrant. It's taking up space. It's worth nothing. It might even cost them to dispose of it responsibly. But here's the shift. What if that liability could be assetized? Introduce a process, call it extracted usable electronics components, where the device gets evaluated, stripped of its still functional parts, and those parts flow into a refurbished electronics component marketplace. Suddenly, that liability has a pathway into the asset quadrant. That pathway, that transformation, is the solution we're envisioning. And once that possibility lights up, we don't stop there. We zoom out. Because a solution is only as strong as the ecosystem it serves, so we now evaluate every actor in this picture and ask, where do they stand in the economic quadrants? First, the device owner who wants their gadget fixed. They don't want to buy a brand new device. They just need one working part. A refurbished component gives them exactly that, at a fraction of the cost. For them, this sits in the necessity quadrant: affordable, accessible, practical. Next, the purchaser of refurbished parts, the repair technician, the small workshop owner. For them, access to quality refurbished components is a business enabler. It expands what they can fix, who they can serve, and how competitively they can price their services. Clear asset play. Then, the original device manufacturer and the original parts manufacturer. Interesting actors. At first glance, a refurbished parts market might seem like a threat. But look closer. Extended product life cycles mean brand loyalty, and there's a growing regulatory and reputational pressure to demonstrate sustainability. A structured refurbishment ecosystem could actually align with their long-term interests. Now, the government, regulatory bodies that set standards for electronics repair and disposal, for them, a formalized refurbished components marketplace is a facility. It operationalizes policy. It gives teeth to sustainability mandates. It creates accountability in the e-waste chain. And finally, the refurbished electronics marketplace owner. This actor is at the center of the entire value web. They extract value from every transaction, every verified component, every repair enabled, squarely in the asset quadrant, and arguably the anchor of the entire model. When you lay all of this out, actor by actor, quadrant by quadrant, something remarkable emerges. You get a 360-degree economic view of the solution. You can see how money flows through the system. You can see where each actor wins, and you can see how all of that value creation is pointed at a single, meaningful outcome, reducing the volume of e-waste on this planet. This is the power of the economic quadrant method. It doesn't just validate whether a problem is worth solving. It maps who benefits, how they benefit, and why they'd all want to participate in making the solution work. A problem that hurts millions, turned into a marketplace that works for everyone. That's what a well-structured solution looks like. Let's shift to a completely different domain, but one that carries the same urgency and the same opportunity for purposeful innovation. You come across an article from the World Economic Forum. It's about dengue fever, a vector-borne disease that continues to sweep across populations globally, returning in waves every few years, leaving health systems strained and communities vulnerable. And the article makes a sobering point. This will likely keep happening until a reliable prevention methodology is finally in place. And that gets you thinking. Deep biomedical research into vector-borne disease prevention. That's a long game, complex, expensive, years in the making. But here's a different question, a more immediate one. Why isn't there a simple, technology-driven, proactive mechanism already in place? Because here's what we know. Vector density, the concentration of mosquitoes in a given area, isn't random. It rises and falls with weather conditions. Temperature, humidity, rainfall, these are measurable, trackable variables. So, could we detect when vector density is increasing in a locality before the disease spreads? Could that detection trigger timely insecticide treatment? Could an automated system do this consistently, reliably, at scale? And if someone built that, would it be wanted? Would communities, local bodies, municipalities pay for it? The answer feels obvious. So let's map it out. We plot this use case across the 4 economic quadrants: assets, liabilities, necessities, and facilities, starting with the most fundamental actor, the resident of a locality. For this actor, health is an asset, perhaps the most personal and irreplaceable one. Disease doesn't just threaten that asset, it actively pulls it into the liability zone. Suffering, medical costs, lost productivity, all of it measurable, all of it real. So a facility that prevents the cause of disease, that's not a nice to have. That's an important facility, one with a strong case for becoming an outright necessity. This is the core insight. Liability prevention, when done well, becomes one of the most compelling use cases for real-world innovation. Now let's expand the lens and look at the other actors. The residents' representative body, think housing societies, community associations, sees this situation through exactly the same lens as the individual resident. Collective health is a collective asset. Prevention of disease is a shared facility and a shared necessity. Their motivation to participate is high, and their ability to mobilize community action makes them a powerful stakeholder. The municipality department is a natural ally. A locality free from vector-borne disease is a significant reputational win for any municipal body. They want this to succeed, but, and this is important, they'll bring operating procedures, regulatory guidelines, and best practices to the table. Any initiative operating in their jurisdiction needs to align with those standards. Their involvement adds credibility and accountability, and should be welcomed, not navigated around. The insecticide spray product vendor and service provider, these actors see a direct business opportunity. A reliable, automated detection system that triggers treatment recommendations is essentially a demand generation engine for their products and services. But their long-term stake in this ecosystem depends entirely on effectiveness. If their products work and their methods are sound, they become trusted, essential partners. If they cut corners, they undermine the entire initiative. Their reputation and the initiative's success are inseparable. And finally, the provider of automated vector density detection capability. This is the central actor, the pivot point around which everything else turns. Their ability to penetrate localities, their reliability in detecting density changes accurately and critically. Their ability to pull together all these other stakeholders into a coherent, functioning ecosystem, that's what determines whether this initiative succeeds or falls short. And here's the deeper point. The reason we do this stakeholder mapping exercise, the economic quadrant analysis, the actor-by-actor evaluation, is precisely to surface this kind of insight for this central actor, to show them not just that the opportunity exists, but how to approach it, who to bring in, and what it takes to make the win-win a reality for every participant. This is what purposeful problem framing looks like. A global health headline, a simple but powerful question, a structured analysis that reveals a clear, viable path, and a central actor who, armed with this understanding, now knows exactly where to focus. Different domain, same rigorous thinking, same powerful outcome. So far, we've been drawing inspiration from global headlines, WHO reports, World Economic Forum articles, but innovation doesn't always start with a global trigger. Sometimes it starts with something far more personal, something you experience yourself on an ordinary day. Here's one such moment. You're out shopping with a friend. It's festival season. The stores are buzzing. The collections are great. The energy is high. But then you hit a wall. The trial rooms, every store, same story. A snaking queue, people waiting endlessly just to try on a single item. One trial room for what feels like 100 eager shoppers. You and your friend just wanted to quickly check how a few t-shirts look and fit, a 5-minute job. But the queue turned that 5 minutes into a half-hour ordeal, and slowly that eagerness to buy, it started to fade. Now let's look at what's actually happening here through an economic lens, because it's more significant than it might appear. That clothing store is a necessity destination. Great stock, strong reputation, the place people want to be. But the moment the trial room bottleneck kills the shopping experience, something shifts. The purchase stops feeling necessary. It starts feeling optional. Why wait? I'll just order online. Maybe I won't bother at all. That shift from mandatory necessity to optional facility in the buyer's mind is economic erosion in real time, and it's happening right in the middle of the store's peak revenue window. So the question becomes obvious. Why hasn't this been solved? Physical space is limited. You can't just build more trial rooms. But what if the need for physical space could be replaced entirely with a high-quality, realistic digital alternative? What if someone could try on clothes virtually, seeing how they look, how they'd fit, without ever stepping into a cubicle? That's the idea behind the virtual trial room. Now let's see how each actor in this picture responds to it. For prospective buyers, many would embrace it immediately. It may not be identical to a physical trial, but it covers the essentials. Look, fit simulation, style assessment, and it adds something a physical trial room never could. The ability to share the look on social media, get instant feedback from friends, make the experience social and fun. For digitally comfortable shoppers, this is genuinely exciting. Now, not everyone will want to go digital. Some buyers will always prefer the traditional physical trial, and that's fine. Physical trial rooms stay. But here's what changes. The queue splits, the bottleneck eases, and the buyers who were about to give up and walk away, they stay engaged. For the clothing store owner, this is a direct solution to a direct problem. Divert a portion of the trial room rush to the virtual option, and peak hour congestion reduces meaningfully. Buyer motivation stays intact. Sales momentum is preserved, even on the busiest days of the year. And for the virtual trial room solution provider, this is a compelling market opportunity. Every retail store that recognizes the economic value of this offering becomes a potential client. Scale it across hundreds of retail locations, and the business potential is substantial. A personal frustration, a structured analysis, a solution that creates a win for buyers, store owners, and solution providers alike. That's the power of recognizing economic signals in everyday moments and having the tools to act on them. Let's bring it all together and summarize the economic quadrant analysis approach we've applied across these examples. It starts with finding the right problem. The trigger can come from anywhere: a global report, a research finding, or something you witness firsthand on the ground. The source doesn't matter. The quality of the problem identification does. Step 2. Identify the actors. Who wants this problem solved? Who doesn't? Some problems have existed so long that nobody believes a solution is possible. Some aren't worth spending money on. And sometimes, certain actors benefit from the problem staying unsolved. Mapping these dynamics early is essential. Step 3. Plot the problem against the economic quadrants. Understand how economic value is currently flowing and where the financial backing for a solution could realistically come from. That's the core question this analysis is designed to answer. And step 4. Define the economic progression path. This is where viability becomes visible, and it deserves a closer look because the path to financial backing can take several distinct forms. A solution earns backing when it does at least one of 4 things. First, it saves costs. If a solution reduces expenses that actors are already bearing, it can be financially justified through a share of those savings. The value is direct and measurable. Second, it does an existing job better and cheaper, not eliminating a spend entirely, but replacing it with a smarter, more efficient alternative that delivers more for less. Actors redirect existing budget towards something that works better. Third, it saves significant time or effort. When a solution eliminates friction, accelerates processes, or frees up human bandwidth at meaningful scale, it becomes a compelling candidate for financial investment, even if the cost saving isn't immediately obvious. And fourth, it ensures against future risk. If a solution protects actors from a potential loss, financial, reputational, operational, that might occur down the line, the cost of the solution is justified by the risk it mitigates. Prevention, when the stakes are high enough, is always worth paying for. The economic progression path uncovers which of these apply, and often the strongest solutions touch more than one. When they do, the case for backing becomes not just clear, but compelling. That's the method, structured in 4 steps, grounded in economic reality, and powerful in practice. And that brings us to the end of this session. And what a journey it's been. We came in with real problems. We tested them against real economic logic. And through 3 distinct examples, we've seen firsthand how the economic quadrant analysis cuts through complexity, revealing whether a problem is truly worth solving, who has the economic motivation to back it, and how a viable solution takes shape around that understanding. That clarity is not just academic. It's the foundation every meaningful solution must be built on. And it's also the launchpad for what comes next. Because once the economic case is established, the next critical question becomes, what does this solution mean to the people it touches? That's the domain of stakeholder value analysis. And that's exactly where we're headed. The groundwork is laid. Let's keep building.